And now I'm excited to introduce today's speaker and fantastic presenter, Judy Lariviere. Judy is the AAC and OT expert at Katie's Clinic for Rett and related disorders at UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital in Oakland. Judy also has a private practice called Assistive Tech for All. Judy has worked in the field of AAC and closely with girls, boys, and adults with Rett syndrome and related disorders for many years. She has led the eye gaze innovation revolution for Rett syndrome on a global scale and is a much sought-after speaker, presenter, author, and advocate worldwide. We are so grateful to have her with us today. And so with this introduction, welcome, Judy. If you're ready, we will turn the screen over to you and you can begin your presentation.
Yes, I'm ready. Thank you. Oh my goodness, what an amazing introduction. You're making me tear up. Sorry. Oh my goodness. All right. So let me I'm hoping everybody can see my screen. We're ready to go. All right. So thank you again for that amazing introduction. So what I'm going to talk to you today about is communication. It's a big topic for everyone. And the title of my presentation is Communication, Making It Count. And so I'm going to jump right in and sorry, it just wasn't changing for a second, and just talk about communication counts and start off with a quote that is actually from Janice Light, and it was from an article she wrote back in 1997. And the title is where the quote comes from, and her title was Communication is the Essence of Human Life. And that really sums up what I see, what I live by, and what I see so important for individuals with Rett syndrome is supporting them in communicating and connecting with people. And she also, the other part of her title was Reflections on Communicative Competence. And so a link to her article is there. But that sort of just captures the importance of communication. The other thing I wanted to share with you, and this quote actually was given to me the first time I saw it by a grandmother of a girl that I worked with. And it's really meaningful, and it's sort of about that presuming competence and making no assumptions based on physically what you see or the outward appearance or the inability to speak. And so the quote is, not being able to speak is not the same as having nothing to say. And I always say through my work with children, teens, and adults with Rett syndrome, they have so much to say, so much to say. And you can see it in their eyes and their facial expressions, their gestures, their body movements, everything. And it's up to us to help them unlock that and help them communicate. So in my practice, and as Melissa was saying, yes, I work at Katie's Clinic for Rett syndrome and related disorders. So I'm not just seeing children with and adults with Rett syndrome, but also with MECP2 duplication, FOXG1, CDKL5, all those disorders that relate to Rett syndrome. But prior to that, I was working in Canada where I worked with children with complex communication needs who had not Rett syndrome, but cerebral palsy. They were non-speaking as well. And so ever since then, I've always believed that everyone has the innate desire to connect and communicate with others, regardless of what their disability is or what physically limits them motorically, because that's what I see is that individuals are locked inside their bodies, especially individuals with Rett syndrome. And it's up to us to figure out ways to help them reveal what they want to say, what they're thinking, what's in their hearts too, right? And so if we just talk globally about everyone, all of us, the connections we have and strengthen with our family members, friends, colleagues at work, or others, people who you may even meet on social media, those are what bring joy and light to our lives. That's what's important in life. So communication is the essence of human beings, right? And it also is what brings us joy and happiness. And so it's really important to help individuals with Rett syndrome communicate and see their communication. So to start off with, as Melissa was saying, is that I've definitely, ever since, I've always been involved with technology and just known that that's the way for individuals with Rett syndrome and other disorders to have independent access to technology as a way for them to independently access their own voice. So it's not dependent on someone to, bring the choices to them or bring the materials to them. When they have independent access to technology and essentially an augmentative communication device, or another term is speech generating device if you're in the US or Canada looking at funding sources, basically that's a means for them to access their voice. And eye gaze technology, especially for individuals with Rett syndrome, is what opens that door to have independent access to their voice. And so, yes, many individuals with Rett syndrome cannot point with their fingers. So they can't just pick up an iPad and start talking away with a communication app on the iPad. However, their eyes are like their index fingers. And that's why eye gaze technology works so well for them, because they naturally use their eyes to communicate, not only to look at what they want, but then also to look at their communication partners, say, hey, did you get that? Did you see what I was looking at? And so with eye gaze technology, it was designed, I always say, for them, because it capitalizes on that motor movement that is much easier and more natural for them to use. So what I see, and I've worked with a lot of different access methods over the years, basically ever since I came to United States, which was back in 1996, I've been working with children with Rett syndrome. That's where I met my first girl with Rett syndrome, was when I first moved here with my husband. And so I went through all these different access methods, so like switches, and then there's optical head pointers where basically you have a reflective dot on your forehead and you're moving the mouse around on the screen. But it wasn't until 2009 when portable eye gaze systems became available. So it wasn't like, there was ones obviously before then where one girl, when I was in Katie's clinic, they rolled in the older model, the Tobii P10, which basically very, very heavy, huge. You had to plug into the wall, definitely not portable, but they rolled it in on a wagon. So they made it as portable as possible. But it was in 2009 that the communication devices with eye gaze technology became operable on batteries, and that became truly portable. So, but since then, since eye gaze technology, portable eye gaze technology began introduced, I've seen progress with that eye gaze system and that means of access to their independent voice. It's dramatic. It can happen in Katie's clinic. I've developed my own eye gaze trial page sets. I see it within 10 minutes of using the device. As soon as they calibrate the eye gaze system, they're ready to go and they're starting to use it and interact with it. They don't need to use all these other games that teach you the cause and effect of it. They get it because they naturally use their eyes anyway. So within 10 minutes, they're using the communication pages that I've set up for them. So seeing is believing. So I'm going to start off with a video as soon as I just talk about this one thing. So what do I see that I know they're using their eyes and that I know they're not just making random selections? They're showing preferences for their favorite music videos. And basically, how are they doing that? They're repeatedly going back to the same one. So if Mickey Mouse is their favorite, and I've learned that from their parents prior to them coming to Katie's clinic or prior to me working with them in my private practice, I know what their favorites are. And then I program those things in there with other ones that are not, maybe they don't know them, or maybe they're not their favorites, I don't know, but I have their favorites in there so I can see, are they finding their favorites from among the choices? Are they going back to those ones and repeatedly playing them? How are they interacting with them? Are they listening to the whole video before going and choosing a different one? There's all these signs of how they're using the communication device to show me that they're very definitely making their preference known. And the other thing that they do is they communicate their needs related to hunger, needing a drink, a break, and that's to support their sensory system in a regulated state. And essentially what that means is helping them stay in a zone where it's easy for them to communicate. Once they start moving out of that zone, and I call it the green zone, they are going into the yellow zone. It's like caution, beware that, you know what, they're going out of regulation, so they're not going to be able to stay focused and attend. And that's when they still need to be able to indicate, hey, I need something to help me get back into my zone again. And typically it's, something to eat or drink or a break. Maybe some of them who are independently mobile, they need to get up and walk around. So, but what I see during my eye gaze trials first time using eye gaze systems is basically learning unfolding in the moment before our eyes. And so that is so important, because a lot of times there's a lot of questions about, well, are you sure they did that? Or, you know, we can't give them eye gaze technology or even try other methods for them to have independent access to their voice without them having these prerequisite skills that they have demonstrated first. And it's just like, you know what? I don't go by that. I get them set up, I try them, I set them up for success, and I watch and I see. And so, and I want to look at the learning that takes place, you know, just no different than a child picking up a TV remote or picking up phones these days. They're all over them, tapping away and stuff. I see that same interaction and that level of engagement with eye gaze technology, with young girls and with older girls who haven't had the same opportunities to have access to it. And yes, boys too. I've definitely worked with boys with Rett syndrome as well. And I'll try to keep saying individuals with Rett syndrome. So here, before we get started, this is a little girl who I just saw recently at Katie's clinic. She's 3. And so this is her first time using the eye gaze system. She's about, you know, 8-9 minutes into using the system. She's calibrated, got a wonderful calibration, basically all green, which means a highly successful calibration. And she's now using my eye gaze trial page set. And the images that you see in this is actually, they're ones from Patty King DeBon from creativecommunicating.com. She's created these images that are very engaging, colorful, and the girls' and boys' eyes are just magnets to them. So, because it's just easy, they're very transparent. You can see it, once you see the video, you'll see, oh yeah, it's very easy to see that this one's like eyes, it's about your eyes. The other one's looking tired. Another one's looking that they're having a drink. And so initially this girl, she's starting, this is her first time landing on this page. And this is the I need something page. And what she's doing is she's sort of exploring and checking them out. So she's going across and checking them out. But then what happens, she's actually goes back and selects something repeatedly. And it's just like, okay, now that you're going back and selecting it repeatedly, you're telling me she's using it to communicate already. And you're going to see what she's communicating. Oh, the other quick thing about the videos, if you can't hear them or they're running slower, because typically when they're broadcasted over a webinar, they can be slower depending on your connection, my connection, that type of thing. So don't worry about that. We're going to be putting the videos, the actual videos from me into the actual recording. So you'll get really high quality videos in the recording. But for right now, this is what we can do.
Tell me if you need. I'm really tired. Oh, I need a break. You need a break? Or you could say, I want something to eat. It's time for a drink. You could say, it's time for a drink. I'm thirsty. May I have a drink? Please. Oh, you chose a second. It's time for a drink. I need something to eat. I'm hungry. It's time for a snack. Oh, you're telling us you need, you know what? It might be getting to your snack time, is it? I need a drink, please. You need a drink, okay. All right, Mom heard you. She's getting you a drink, yes. It's time for a drink. Okay.
So you can see in that video, initially she was going through, but then she went back to say, hey, I need a drink and I'm hungry. And this is totally appropriate. The time that she was doing this, it was her snack time. It was later in the morning. She needed something to eat and drink. The girls need that. The individuals with Rett syndrome need that to keep their sensory system in a good zone so that they can keep going and participating. And so after her mom gave her a drink, she had a really significant drink. So I know she was very intentional with her selections based on, even though it was sort of the first time she landed it, I hadn't presented the symbols beforehand to say, you need to know these, this is what they're gonna look like. She is learning in the moment through repetitive selections. It's like, oh yeah, and then going back to it. That's all intention and that's communication. And we're responding to it. So we're making her communication intent count and meaningful to her because we're acknowledging it and responding to it. So in the next video, it shows that she's still on this page and she's then communicating some more things.
A little bit longer, thank you, okay.
I need something to eat.
Oh, maybe you need a snack? My eyes are really tired.
Okay.
My eyes are really
And you're looking at me. Okay. All right. You know what? We can take a break because this is all new, right?
Drink, please.
Oh, more to drink. Okay.
My eyes are really
Okay. I hear you. But you know what? You're telling us things that like you want something to eat and
I'm tired.
you're tired too.
My eyes are really tired.
Okay. You know what? We'll just give you a break with your eyes, okay? So what I'm doing in that situation, she's continuing to tell me that she's really tired. And so that is totally appropriate. This is like about 10 minutes into the eye gaze trial where she's using the device for the first time. There's light that's coming out into her eyes from the eye gaze piece. So what happens is it fatigues your eyes. Plus, when you think about how you're using an eye gaze system, you have to scan across the page to find what you want, and then you have to look at it and hold your gaze on something for a certain length of time, which is the dwell, in order to select it. That's 2 movement patterns, and those are new to her. It's not exactly match what you just do to look at something and, you know, in your environment and hold a steady gaze on it or glance over to something. This is much more difficult because it's actually using technology and waiting for that system to respond and to what you're looking at too. So it is fatiguing, and typically young ones who, like she's 3, you know, you don't get much more than 10, 15 minutes out of them using it the first time. And so what I did is I turned it around so that the light was out of her eyes and that I was honoring what she was communicating, that she's like, hey, I'm tired. Because I still want her to do a bit more. I only see the girls for about an hour in Katie's clinic, and it's just like, okay, I want to capitalize on that time. Not that she's going to be using that system for an hour, but I want to get a bit more out of her. So the other thing you can always do too is put up like a poster board or foam core board that's black or something that maybe has a yes and no on it, just to cover the eye gaze. That's another thing I do. I just didn't have that with me at the time, so I had to turn the device around. But that's another way just to block out the light and just give them that true break to rest their eyes from the eye gaze system. And that works really well in classrooms too. So in this next video, we're switching gears a bit. And so she's not talking about what she needs anymore, but we're playing, and she's directing me in playing bubbles. So you're not going to see the Tobii eye gaze system, the Tobii i12 series, which is what is in this video that she's using. You're going to see more from a front shot, and you're going to see how she's interacting with both her dad and I, and using the device, as well as other ways she's communicating. Or you want to go more bubbles? What do you need to do? You want to pop it? I saw you get your finger out. Okay, let me get another one for you. Whoa, why are they all popping?
With single quotients, blow some bubbles.
Okay, I'll blow more bubbles. All right.
Now, pop those bubbles.
Okay, you want to pop? It popped on your hand.
The bubbles.
Oh, look.
Blow more bubbles.
Blow more? Okay. There they are.
Blow more bubbles.
I am blowing more. Oh.
Blow more bubbles.
Keep blowing more. Okay. Ooh. What should I do?
Now, pop those bubbles.
Oh, you want to pop them? Okay. Here we go. So she's communicating a lot, and the eye gaze is her giving her independent access to a voice to tell me what to do. But that's not the only thing she's using to communicate. She's looking at the bubbles. As soon as she says, blow more bubbles, she's waiting for me to blow more bubbles. She's also glancing over to her snack, which is over on the right side, sort of to tell her dad, hey, I want more snack. And he's recognizing that and responding to that. She's then naturally choosing something from the communication device from the Tobii. And then again, you know, changing from not only, you know, blow the bubbles, but also pop the bubbles. And you could also see at one point her finger did try, she was trying to pop the bubble with her hand, and with her finger coming out, her index finger came out. And so I saw that and I acknowledged that, right? So what is so important is to watch for all those ways that an individual with Rett syndrome is communicating, and to acknowledge and respond to it and give it meaning in terms of what they're communicating, because then you just get more communication. Now, she's being very relaxed. She's sitting on her dad's lap. She's relaxed. This is easy for her. She knows already that as a communication partner, I'm going to honor and respond to what she gives me, regardless of whether it's using the eye gaze system, or she's using her eyes to look at something, or she's going to move her finger to try and say, hey, I'm trying to pop this. I'm going to respond to everything. And her dad as well is responding to what she's communicating to him. So it's just natural. And I think sometimes we forget how simple it is and how we get caught up because there's so many things we're trying to think about. And it's just like, we just need to relax and just let it happen and just engage them in natural things. So of course you might be saying, okay, well, what am I going to do with someone who's older? I'm not going to do bubbles. And I'm like, no, definitely not. Age respectful. Let's be age respectful. So what I would do with an older girl or boy is music. Music is universal. So you could be having even music just play on, a parent's phone, and then they can make comments about the music. You can turn the volume down low so that they have a way to, and communicate a way to turn it up, or next song, or anything like that, right? So you just have to think about, okay, what is really motivating to them, and then set the stage for that, set the system up for that. The other thing too is I use in girls and boys homes a lot, what I've been having a lot of fun with, and they've been having fun with, and it's very engaging with family too, is using the Echo Dot, Amazon's Echo Dot, with Alexa, and programming in the eye gaze Tobii device, or in a Pranky-Romic device, any eye gaze device, just commands to control, ask Alexa, Alexa, what is the weather for San Mateo, California? Or Alexa, what day is it today? Or what time is it? Or tell me a joke, or what movies are playing, anything. You can ask Alexa anything, and there's always updates. Once you get into Echo Dot, you get what Alexa can do now. I also have them have controls and pages that I've developed with controlling books through Audible, so they can choose what book they want to read off their account and then listen to it, go back and rewind it. Same thing with music. So there's just so many different things you can do. You just have to think about, well, what about how can I engage them in this? And then, so the Echo Dot, and you can do the same thing with the Google Home. I just don't have one. I've used more the Echo Dot, the Alexa, and the Alexa app to control it through the communication devices. But it works, and it's engaging, and it's motivating. And it's not just all about making choices for, oh, I need to eat, I need to drink. Those are there all the time, but it's also engaging about the power and showing the power of communication. Okay. So within this context, I'm presuming competence. Whenever I meet an individual with Rett syndrome, I know they have communication in there, and it's up to me and up to the communication partner to tap into that communication. And so it's believing and knowing that all individuals are capable of learning, and within learning, there's communication. And it doesn't mean that we're being unrealistic or exaggerating their abilities. Yes, we're giving them the benefit of the doubt, but it's like, if you come from a point where you're always questioning, well, was that intentional? Or I don't think they did that, that was random. It's like, well, maybe initially it is, but then there's very much intention with it, and communication comes out of that. Then you can move forward, you can move on to a higher level. Just as I did with that little girl, first time using the eye gaze system, she's jumping ahead and she's communicating a lot. And it's not just with the communication device, but it opens up the door to expand, to communicate with more. And so basically, when you presume competence, it gives you a starting place. So where you can build that communication and connection, which is what really is important. And basically what you're doing is making what an individual communicates count, giving it meaning and acting on that. And yeah, it might not always be right, but you know what? If you're not acting, if you misread their communication, or maybe that's not what they intended and you acted on it, they're going to remember and let you know, hey, no, that's not what I want, through other ways, fussing or crying, or me like, using vocalizations. So there's lots of ways. Communication happens all the time. And so it happens, and communication happens anytime, anywhere, for many reasons, and in many different ways. And especially when given the opportunity to express themselves. And this goes hand in hand, responsive, knowledgeable communication partners. That doesn't mean you have to be a professional, a teacher. It's anyone who comes in contact with an individual with Rett syndrome. They need to learn to be a knowledgeable, responsive communication partner so that they get more communication. The more you respond to communication, the more communication you get, and it just blossoms from there. And then it's just amazing. And so I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this slide, but it's there for your reference. Multiple modes of communication. We don't just communicate one way. There's lots of ways we communicate. And so you can see that there's all these other options. There's like eye contact with communication partner or looking at something. Facial expressions, proximity for individuals who are mobile. They walk up to the fridge and stand by the fridge. It's like, hey, I need something to eat. Or they'll go walk to the door to indicate they want to go outside. So they're using proximity or positioning to communicate something that's going on. We don't need to replace that. We just need to acknowledge it. That's part of their natural repertoire of communication. The other thing is vocalizations. Typically, you can hear a difference in intonation, and that has different meanings. And volume also can make a big difference. And there's natural gestures. Some have specific signs or gestures that mean something. They might have a certain gesture for a yes, or they might have something for, hey, I need to go to the bathroom type thing, or like, give me more, tell me more things. So there's lots of different ways that the individuals with Rett syndrome are communicating all the time, but we need to know what they are and give them meaning and then share them with others. So the other thing too is, if you look under AAC, which is augmentative and alternative communication, there's light text. So there's, communication paper displays. That means no batteries. There's also mid-tech, where there's, the iPad or communication single message recorded devices or sequential message recorded devices. There's actually a new one that's out that I really like called Gameplay by AbleNet, or another company is Adaptivation. They have what's called the randomizer. And what they do are, instead of the step-by-step where the messages go in a sequence, which is good for a recipe or telling someone steps for instructions, but these other ones, they randomize the order of the presentation. And there's a level on there called randomized elimination. So what happens is, once a randomized message is spoken, it's not spoken again until it goes through all the other messages. So you can just imagine that there's lots of different ways to press a button and hear a recorded message for, hey, how are you? What have you been up to? And so it's not just sharing that news, which is in typically a sequenced way, but you can have more variety and more natural things for participation within the classroom or at home if you're playing a game, that type of thing. It can be like, hey, no cheating, or it's my turn. And it doesn't matter what the order is, it's open-ended, but that can really be a lot of fun and really support that natural engagement versus always hearing in the same sequence the multiple messages. So it's called Gameplay. That's from AbleNet. And then there's the other one, Randomizer by Adaptivation. And I'll make sure that within the questions that get posted after this webinar, once we accumulate them all, any answers that we don't have within the webinar, I'll make sure that that's in the resources list. So that's sort of mid-tech. Then high-tech is definitely the higher-end communication devices with eye gaze technology or whatever other method is used to access for independently access. So no supported access where someone has to hold their arm a certain way so they can touch the iPad. That's supported communication. Independent means truly independent, so they can get to where they want to go on their own. So one of the things that really helps build communication, all individuals with Rett syndrome have natural yes response, and one of them is through eye contact. And you can see in this picture here, this girl's looking to me, she's telling me, I asked her a question about something related to the book, and she immediately looked to me and is like, yeah. And so there's different ways for individuals to communicate yes. So let's take a look. So often we talk about a best yes. And that implies there's only one yes that individuals have, or one way of communicating that, but really they have a range or a repertoire of those. And basically we need to be open and flexible and know what those are and respond to them. Because sometimes they're having harder motor days or harder times of the day, or something's going on with their body, and they can only give you one way of responding. And it might not always be eye contact. It might be like a little smile or something. If they're tired and they're chunk and they're sort of leaning over, if they have scoliosis, they might not always be able to get their head up to tell you to have that eye contact for yes. So, but there's other ways, the vocalization. It can be an eyebrow raise. There's lots of different options. But what we need to do as communication partners is document this for everyone who is a communication partner in that individual's life. So whether it's the teacher needs to know, I know we're on summer vacation right now, but when we go back to school, it's important that new team members know all the different ways that they give a yes response. And they need to recognize it and acknowledge it and be taught how to do that. And also caregivers in the home, if there's any nurses taking care of the kids at any time, or other family members, grandparents, they need to know all these ways that the individual with Rett syndrome is communicating so that they can keep communicating with them, but also so the child or the teen or adult doesn't get frustrated because it's like, wait a minute, I'm telling you yes, but you're not seeing it or responding to it. Now, a lot of times what happens is we get hung up on, you have to have definite yes and you have to have a definite no. So my philosophy and what I've operated from, and it works really well, is that as long as you have yes responses, the absence of me seeing one of those yeses can be a no. And the no's develop over time. No can be looking away. No can be sort of looking straight ahead with no response. And sometimes no can be sort of like, I don't care. You're asking me a ton of questions and I really, nothing related to something I'm interested in right now. Because you'll see also a range or intensity of the yes responses as how clear they are. If it's something that's really emotionally relevant and engaging and important to the individual with Rett syndrome, you're going to see a really quick, clear yes response. If you're doing it, using it within academic stuff where they have to think about it a bit more, it may take a bit longer if they're not as sure about it, but you will see it. So what you want to do is accept all the different ways that they give a yes response. The great thing about identifying those yes responses, they're portable. You don't always have access to an eye gaze system. Even when you have it, you can't use it outside really that well. You know, sometimes you just don't have time to pull it out and have it up and going. That's the reality of life. I get that. And so, you know, when you're out and about, it's not always easy when you're, if the child's mobile too, you're not going to be carrying around the device unless you land somewhere. So if you're landing at a restaurant, then you can put it up type thing. But, you know, if you're in the zoo and they're walking around and, you know, you're pushing them in a stroller and they're getting out and walking around, you're not going to have the eye gaze system there, but you will still have a way to get those yes and no responses, or especially just the yes. So I always say accept and acknowledge many yes responses. And here's just a list of some of the ones that I've already talked about. And then what I'm going to do is show you an example video where there's a lot of different yes responses. And you're going to see how it supports ongoing interaction while there's a conversation going on. So before this video starts, I want to just share a bit of background about this video. So the context is, I came into school, was seeing this girl, her AAC specialist is in the room, her paraprofessional's in the room. So we're having a conversation, but the conversation is centering around baking. And so the reason it started is because I saw the school secretary and she loves to bake. She makes all these amazing things. And she had a cast on her hand. I'm like, oh no, you must not be able to bake right now. And she's like, yeah, I'm, you know, getting near the end of wearing my cast and stuff. So I tried baking, but it didn't turn out that well. And so this girl heard this conversation. So as soon as we set up her Tobii eye gaze system, she immediately went to her bookshelf and she chose Crazy Cakes, which was a book about all these different fancy design cakes. And so it was from the website Learning or Reading A to Z. And so we had set it up on her device. And so she went to that one because it's like, yes, you're right. We were talking about cakes. So she was like, hey, I'm setting the context. So we end up talking about baking, and she used to bake a lot with her AAC specialist. And so you're going to see her reactions and her basically different ways she's communicating yes while this conversation is going on. And she's talking and telling us what she's thinking. So here is the video.
You want to make some Halloween treats? Maybe chocolate brownies, since that looks like that's on your top 10. We can, yeah, chocolate brownies, and we can maybe do some Some decorating of them with like Halloween, like yes. Oh my, candy corn. We haven't baked yet this year. We have to make sure we have like the kid crazy cake, crazy cupcakes. Yeah. You know what you're thinking about? We can have the high school. Oh hey. That sounds really good. You know what? Yes, it does. Yeah. Lilia. Miss Marcella has connections at the high school, so she can maybe get us in to use the kitchen to bake over there. You are like she has connections and lighting up about that. I see that. We used to bake a lot, right? Those were the fun days. Those were the days. Yeah. I know. None of this work stuff. Right? I'm just kidding. You would be reading about stuff like that, right? Yeah, you're telling me you remember. And that whole thing, you know what, you're supposed to be telling us different ways about what you're thinking about, because you are a big eavesdropper. You hear every conversation. You do, don't you? And so that makes you thinking about something. The baking. And we used to do so much baking. Wow. So fun, right? Yes. I know. What happened to Susie's day? You know that, right? We're doing it again. That's our project for Halloween. For sure.
So you can see all the different ways she's communicating that she agrees with it. She's smiling and giggling. She's lifting her head up. She's glancing over that direction. She looked to me. But a lot of times her head is down, right? And so, but she's bringing it up with intention to say, yeah, I agree with that. So one of the reasons her head's down too is individuals with Rett syndrome have sometimes a hard time maintaining eye contact with their communication partner while someone's talking to them. So looking and listening can be difficult. So she's listening, and then you can see she's responding when she's hearing something she agrees with and responding very clearly. And those were with her different yes responses. The other thing too is you see me sitting on her left side, and in Katie's clinic, the other video you saw, I was sitting on the girl's left side. So typically, natural yes response is on the left. So when I have page sets that I've programmed and set up in my page sets I've developed and stuff, typically my thumbs up comments are on the left side. That incorporates a yes, and I like it. So that's like affirmative responses. Then I've got the no's or the negative things, the thumbs down comments on the right. And so I want to sit on and reinforce that, yes, the comments for thumbs up, yes, are on the left side. So that's the side I sit to. So when they look to me on that side, that's naturally yes. But you have to be careful because some individuals with Rett syndrome, that's not their natural side they look to. And so there's one girl, for example, I work with, and she actually touches yes with yes and no symbols with her hand. That's how she's communicating yes, one of the ways. And so, but what happens is because she's using her right hand, she naturally just reaches out. She's not always crossing midline, so she naturally reaches up. So if the no is on that side, she sounds like it's no to everything. And so just negative. And so you can imagine if the thumbs up or thumbs down comments are on that side, she's going to say negative, I don't like it, I don't want to. And that's just not, that's more positioning of access that she's saying no. That's not necessarily a choice to say no. So what we did is we moved her yes over to the right side on her little display that she's got, and her communication partners sit on her right side so that when she looks to them, she's communicating yes. And when she looks, because sometimes she's not always reaching for it, she's looking that way, but she actually naturally looks more to the right anyway. So you want to build on that. So it's not one size fits all. It's not like this is the way it has to be and you force them to look to the left for yes. It's like you look at what's natural for them and build on that. Okay. And again, if something's not working, this is all about presuming competence. It's not the individual that's having the problem. It's more maybe how we set things up. So then it's like, go ahead and try things, change them around, and don't be bound by the IEP that says, well, this is how we're doing it. It's like, no, change it. And then you can always put comments in the IEP. There's narrative always to talk about how they're reaching their goals, but don't feel that you have to work on something for a year, which is way too long if something's not working. I would say, and Dr. Karen Erickson, I remember her saying, like, if something's not working with 6 weeks, that's good enough trial time. Change it up Figure out what else you can do to help it work better or to make it work, right? Don't get stuck by, something being set up for a year. Just because goals are annual doesn't mean objectives are shorter term than that. So you can change things around. The other thing I want to talk about too is you can just see how this girl was responding to the conversation. So I encourage you, you can do this right now with your son or daughter. Think about, just start talking to them about something that they're interested in and just start watching for their natural yes responses. And this can be easily incorporated, at the table for dinner conversation, right? Incorporate them into the conversation, ask their opinion, ask them a yes, no question that relates to something, see what they say, see what their response is, right? But that's a way to easily engage them and it's natural and you're conversing with them and you're making their communication count. And so having a yes response opens the door to what I call the power of partner-assisted scanning. And basically this helps to expand options. You can present a list of options. It's like, hey, do you want to go go outside for a swim? Do you want to go for a walk? Do you want to go for a nap? Those are your choices. And then you can name them slower and then watch for a natural yes to any of them. And if you don't see anything, it's like, oh, do you want to do something else? So you can always have a fourth in there that's like something else. And then that way you can go through choices. You can just present in the moment to what's relevant to the activity or the context and still get communication going to a multitude of responses. Because how do you talk about represent everything like with an object or a picture about what you're wanting to do? That's a block sometimes. So it's like you can name things and as long as you go back and name them again in the order, they'll give a response. And so you got to practice this, but you can use it. And it just gives communication that's portable and readily available wherever you're at. You can just imagine, say you're at a restaurant and you're giving choices for what's on the menu. You can use partner-assisted scanning. Say, hey, here's your choices. You can have mac and cheese, you have chicken fingers, grilled cheese. Not saying those are good choices, but anyway, those are the choices that might be on the menu, right? And then it's like, okay, tell me yes when you hear the one you want. And then go slower and just wait. And you'll get the pacing down based on how quickly that they naturally give you yes responses. And then that's how you can basically do it. Or say you're at the ice cream shop. What flavor of ice cream do you want? Give a few choices. So it's not just restricted to 2 choices for eye gaze. You can give a few choices and then get the answer with yes, no responses, or just even that best yes. So what I've been doing is on the communication device, the Tobii device, I've created my own homepage and it has extra rows of content in it and has extra pages. And it relates to things like what you saw in the eye gaze trial page sets, which is like the I need something, I think thumbs up, thumbs down, so they can give an opinion. That's really important for individuals with Rett syndrome. There's also ways for them to chat and engage with you, and also to communicate when something hurts and the body parts. So what I'm doing right now is developing this into a communication flip book, and it's based on my layout, my copyrighted eye gaze layout, where things are horizontally arranged left to right because that's their natural gaze pattern. And it also incorporates Patty King-DeBond's new images for elementary or school age individuals and also teenage or adult. And basically it gives you something portable that you can take with you when you don't have access to an eye gaze system or you don't have it with you. And so it gives you that quick communication when you're out and about and not able to access it or don't have one yet. So, but again, it builds on that partner assisted scanning of the best yes. And so this is just some quick screenshots of, and these are just snippets of the I need something, really key ones, eat, drink, help. There's other ones on there. There's up to 12. Not on each page, but across pages. And then there's, I think, thumbs up. They can comment that they like it, their favorite, it's funny. And the images are, again, as I said, Patty King-DeBond's CC images from Creative Communicating. So I want to close the section I am sharing today with, don't worry, we're having questions after. I want to share a story because this will show you also partner-assisted scanning, but also show how smart and intelligent individuals with Rett syndrome are and just how it's all locked inside, and how when we really listen and respond and give them opportunities to communicate, amazing things happen. So, and it also just shows that everything has intention and meaning, and it might not always be apparent or clear right away. And that happens with communication. Sometimes if they have a communication device, they have multiple pages. They have a language system in there where they have lots of words that they can say. They have core phrases. And sometimes they'll string together things and you'll be like, okay, what's that mean? And so what you need to do in that situation, if you're not sure if it has meaning and they keep going back to it, it does. Because there's something that happened that's emotionally tied to it, or something that's going to happen that's emotionally tied to something. And so check in with families or parents to find out, hey, this is what he or she said, what's it mean? And typically I've always found parents are like, oh my goodness, he or she said that? That's because she just told you this is what happened. So they recount things or experiences that they've had. It could have been something that happened in the morning on the way to school, or something that's coming up that's happening, or it can even be within a context, something happened in the classroom. There's meaning behind it, and you just have to sort of unscramble it or be a detective and figure out what they're trying to communicate, but there's meaning with it. And so you want it, by doing that, you're making it count and worth their effort for them to tell you things, whatever way they're using. And so one way is through writing. And I always see writing as the window into what individuals with Rett syndrome can be thinking, feeling, knowing, or they want to share or express. And it's like they're using creative ways to tell you. And what happens is they're using not only invented spelling, where it might have the first letter of a word, or they might have a couple letters that are in the word that might relate to the syllables in a word, or they might start working towards conventional spelling of a word that you can easily recognize what that word is when you see the grouping of it. But when I want you to think about what is involved with writing and higher level thinking, when you're trying to write something, with how you're going to see this girl writing with her alphabet flip book, about how much thinking, planning, and memory to hold on to the thought, to figure out the spelling while going through the process of partner assisted scanning. So this whole thing to create the message that I show you in a little bit took about 35 minutes. She needed a break in the middle to help get her regulated because she was working so hard. She expended herself. She needed some more. She needed a snack. She needed a bit of a music break. And then she came back in. And that's partly because she was dealing with breath holding, extra body movement, and also waiting for her communication partner to go through the process of presenting the letters. And you're going to see what is involved in this. And it's really incredible with what she comes out with. So the context is, there's always a context, right? That gives it meaning. Family's getting ready for a vacation. And so there's been lots of talk going on in the home about where they're going, who they're staying with, planning, and lots of preparation. You can just imagine. And the exciting thing is they're going to a completely different country. So it's a big trip, right? Plane ride, the whole thing. So this girl's been listening to all this and understanding everything. Even when most of the discussions between mom and grandma were in Farsi. And you might be like, Judy, really? How do you know she understands that? Well, see, we saw it in what she wrote. And using partner assisted scanning with both high frequency words and then alphabet flip books. So I'm going to show you some video from when she's using her alphabet. Okay, so just 1 second here.
A, B, C, D. Do you need E, F, G, H? You need E, F, G, or H? You do. Okay, one of those letters. Okay. Do you need E, F, G, H? Your head came down when I said H. Do you need H? Good sentence. Did you need an H?
So So you can see that the process, it takes a bit of time, but you just have to be patient and you've got to be present in the moment. But she's clearly giving me yes responses for when she hears the letter she wants, or if I get to the page first where she wants to choose a letter from, and then I go through the letters and present them slowly. So here's another one where she's choosing some other letters. So with that one, she chose H, right? Okay, so let me just make sure we're starting at the beginning.
Do you need E, F, G, H? Do you need I, J, K, L, M, N? You reach out with your hand. Are you telling you we need one of these letters? I, J, K, L, M, or N? Okay. Do you need O, P, Q, R, S, T? Yes? Okay. I'll take that as a yes. Do you need O? O? Oh. 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 You're yelling to tell me. Wow. Do you need more letters on this page? There's P, Q, R, S, T. Yes. So you're looking away, so I don't know. Let's see. You need, we're getting all excited. More letters from that page. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay, that was very clear. P. Oh, your grading is such great. P. Q. R. S. Very clear.
Okay, so she was giving me a lot of information. And when she vocalized that one time really loudly, that's the first time she used that form of a yes response. But it's like, okay, I'm acknowledging it was very clear and very definitive. So this is what she ended up writing using, as I said, some words that were already presented on a word flip book. And then the letters are A-H-O-S-D-E. So I had no idea. Her speech therapist and I were trying to figure out, we didn't have any idea. So we went to mom. And so this is what she has. We are want going, A-H-O-S-D-E. Now, she's still developing the concept of words. So she had asked for, she had said that she was done the word after H and stuff. But when we sort of looked at it a bit more clearly, once I got more information from mom, what the D-E was, which stood for day-e, which is uncle in Farsi. And what she had done is she had the beginning letters of the syllables day-e. And so then it became more clear. It's like, oh, we are want going. The A was for at, and then H-O-S, pretty close to conventional spelling for house. And so we are want going at house to eat. Well, they were actually leaving for the trip the next day. So very exciting for her. It was the buildup, and that's what she wanted to communicate and tell us. And just she incorporated, so she understood what was going on, as I said, in Farsi, and she expressed that through her spelling. And so this is her picture mom sent. She's happy on vacation, right? So important. Communication is amazing. It's so important. And yet we don't have to get sort of stuck waiting for that eye gaze system to come, because there's so many other ways to communicate. And so now I will open it up to questions. Let me go back.
So, Judy, this is Melissa. I'll jump in and just quickly say thanks so much. That was enlightening and empowering, and just a great presentation. I know that there are some questions in the queue. I've seen a couple. I don't know if you're able to pull those up or if you'd like Andrea to read them off to you.
Yeah, I can pull them up. Am I
Okay.
still sharing my screen or?
Right now, we just see a screen that says questions.
Okay.
So I think it is your screen, I think.
It is my screen. Are people
Yeah.
okay with that? I mean, we can unshare, or I'm fine with it. If people are fine with it, we can just go through. So it looks like, okay, so the question is, we have a Toby, but only use the default program pages, quick talk, and some custom pages we have made. I'd like to use it for my daughter to entertain her with music, read me books. Uh-oh. That one disappear? Okay.
Andrea, are you able to pull them up and read through them?
Maybe, yeah, maybe. I don't want to lose that one. Maybe someone just pulled it up. Maybe we don't want to have people's names here. Let me just close this. Maybe if you unshare my screen, then I can pull up the questions.
So I'll tell you what, I've got them pulled up right in front of me. How about if I go ahead and start?
Okay.
Okay. So we've got a question that says, how do I know where to start with my son? He is only 2.5 years old. What's a place to start if you want to begin using this type of technology?
So if you're wanting to look at eye gaze technology, it depends on where you're located. Does it? So in the, say for example, you're in the United States, and I know people can be coming from all over the world. You can go on to, you can start with Toby. There's other devices out there. There's other companies out there. Pranky Romic company is one company that has a good eye gaze system that works with individuals with Rett syndrome, called the Accent 1400 with New Eye. There's also the Toby eye gaze system, the Toby Dynavox website. And I'll respond to some of these questions also, so you get these websites versus me just rattling them off. So you could contact on definitely either of those companies' websites. There is a location where you can find a sales representative or a sales consultant. You can typically type in your zip code if you're, as I say, living in the US, and then they will come up with the name of the representative who is closest to you, and you can reach out to them to say, hey, you would like to try an eye gaze system. I would definitely connect in with, if your son goes to preschool or it has in-home services, connect in with those team members too, to help you sort of get the eye gaze system sort of set up and ready. I never, given my eye gaze trial page sets, I never do an eye gaze trial without having knowledge ahead of time of what some favorite things are of that child, whether they're, you know, a teen or younger, very young. In the case of your son, obviously he's not going to be into maybe bubbles and stuff, but definitely not dolls. I have dolls on some of the eye gaze stuff. So I've developed ones for boys too that are more about cars and things that they like. And they typically have different video choices that they like to watch. And so one boy too, he really loved watching, he was from the Bay Area, so the San Jose Sharks. So I pulled up videos and incorporated videos of the Sharks playing hockey games, and he could just watch that for a while. So that was sort of what motivated him. So you want to make sure things are set up before you just try sort of the out of the box page sets. You can also contact me. We'll get my screen shared at the end just so I can summarize things, but also I'll have my email address there, so you can always email me offline to get more information, and I can include that also in the question answer. So definitely you can try the eye gaze system, but also in the meantime, you don't have to wait just for that. Just integrate some of the things, like try to identify his natural yes responses, right? And also you can do so much when they're younger with play. So even, you know, playing cars, if that's what motivates him, it's like, oh, what should I do? Should I make it crash? Should I make it go fast? Make it go slow? And typically they'll give you some sign to direct that activity or that play. And you can buying it with symbols for sure. But if you're just sort of starting out, sometimes you might not have all those resources readily available. So don't let that block you. Just play, get on the ground, and, or, you know, if he's in, depending on what positions him the best, you know, bring the cars up to his tray if he's in a high chair type thing, or on the table, or play on the floor, and just talk with him, and just with around play, and just having him direct that activity, and just giving choices as what he wants you to do. That will help you get started, because it's communication, right? You don't need just the eye gaze system to get going with it. I hope that answered your question.
So we've got another one, and that is, how much success are you seeing for multiple hits with a newish user? My daughter is 14, but the system she is using requires multiple hits to formulate a sentence or phrase. I'm not seeing a lot of success because she doesn't want to search for what she wants to say. She is very laid back and gives up. Any tips for improving that, or should we stick to more one-hit phrases? She went on to say we've used, or he or she went on to say we've used Patty's pages in the past, but that seemed a little limiting.
Okay, so typically, so it's not, you know what, it's like a pendulum. It's not all single hit, or it's not all single words, that, because then you have to string everything together. That's exhausting. And that's not, if you're wanting to say, I want a drink, they're typically going to go for drink and just say that, because that's what they're trying to communicate, or they may combine more things. But if you're getting that communication in the moment, and you need to have a combination of core phrases, which is like what's in the Patty King DeBon pages, that is, it's not going to be the solution for everything, but it's sort of like you need that combination. You need those core phrases. So it's that quick interaction and supporting that conversational language and social interaction. And then what I've added in with my extra rows of content is really supporting the individuals with Rett syndrome and having that back and forth conversation. They have, as I was saying, you know, sort of like comments, being able to say comments, being able to sort of direct the conversation in terms of like, hey, slow down, wait a minute, this takes me a minute to do it. Also, like if they need something, but also that quick chat interaction things. I'm also having some new pages that will be coming out called My Life and Experiences and Interests pages that can help expand it. So there is no one thing that's going to meet all the communication needs, and they have to have something to talk about. But two hit can be hard. Doesn't saying it's not impossible by any stretch of the means, but that's, if this is a new device to your daughter, it might be easier to start off with the one hit, or if there is the two hit, at least pull in some pages where there is more of that social interaction and conversational language, that it's easy. So it's one hit, you get a phrase type thing. Because again, it's not just all about novel message generation and generating things by combining individual words. It's also for that quick and easy conversation, which is sort of the focus then, is that back and forth and the connection. And the thing is, especially as girls get older, your daughter's 14, right? There's other stuff going on that some days she may have harder motor days, or there's other days that she may just not feel as well. So you want to make it easy. So communication has to be easy. If it's always hard with two simple hits all the time to get something out, it's going to be harder for her to communicate, and you're going to see less communication than if you allow for a range of options that are in the device. And unfortunately, that means new programming. But find out what's motivating for her and start there, and then build out.
That's great. Thank you. I'll follow up with another one that I see, and I don't know if you're comfortable answering this or not, but I'll put it out there. Does Medicaid or insurance pay for the technology devices for communication? Do you have any experience with that?
Yes, but there's hoops to jump through. It's a process. You have to have definitely a speech language pathologist involved who is writing what's called the letter of medical necessity, that's saying without this communication device, they are not able to express their medical needs. It comes very much from a medical standpoint, but medical needs can be, you know, indicating when they're hungry, or when they need to be repositioned, or when they're in pain. I've had girls express that a body part's hurting, like their ears hurting, and it's just like, really? You look fine to me. And then we've told that to her parent, her mom, and her mom's taken her to the doctor. She's had a full-blown ear infection. So that's really clearly communicating medical need. Would we have given her those choices necessarily if she didn't have a communication device where she could go and navigate there on her own? And she didn't just navigate there once, she kept going back to it to tell us. So no, so it is an independent form of communication to communicate what's medically needed in their life. The other thing is to, be able to contact someone in case of emergency, right? Directing someone to call 911, those type of things. So for Medicaid and those type of, in insurance, it's definitely demonstrating a medical need. It's not as important about the social interaction and the connection piece. It's more that they can communicate medically what's needed. And then it's a process. It can take a long time because you have to have a trial with a device. You have to try, I always say try at least 2 different eye gaze systems, because you need to know which one's going to be best for your son or daughter's eyes in terms of the range of movement, also the language system. But I always say access first. So which one reads their eyes the best? And if they wear glasses, make sure you try it with them using their glasses and wearing their glasses, because sometimes you can get different responses from the eye gaze systems, whether they're wearing glasses or not. And then it's more, making sure that during that trial, they can demonstrate that they're able to communicate that sort of medically necessary things. And it can be also if they have scoliosis or something like that, then that can also, like they need position changes, you can justify it depending on what's going on with that individual. It's just making sure you have to connect in with that speech therapist, and then you need a prescription from a doctor to also support it. So there's a whole process. And actually on the websites for like Tobii Dynavox or Prenke Romic, they have different forms that you look at and sort of like that, what needs to be included in that speech report to support that need. But just know it's a process. It takes time, but it's worth it. It's definitely worth it, and it does get funded. Every state's different in terms of how difficult it is.
Sounds good. Thank you. Yeah. So I've got another one. It says, we have a Tobii, but only use the default programmed pages, Quick Talk, and some custom pages we had made. I'd like to use it for my daughter to entertain herself with music, read to me books, etc., but I'm at a loss of how to do this. You mentioned a bookshelf. Do you have any materials instructing how to set this up and where to access? Is there a way to set up access to Pandora or other music sites? I've not been successful with this.
The answer is yes, and great. That question was the one I was reading that disappeared, so I'm glad it came back. So yes, can you remind me, is it a Tobii device that she's using?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, so and I'm working on a lot of things right now, including some courses where people will have more instructions on how to program this, and also with templates and things like that through Rett University. They're going to be done by the end of the summer. I'm committed to that because it's just like people don't know where to start. People don't know where to go to get things, and it's hard. It's not easy to program the stuff if you're starting from scratch. And yes, you're right. The things that are in the device that sort of come with it, it's not that motivating. It's not unique enough to tap into what an individual's interests are with Rett syndrome, because they're age appropriate in their interests and what they like. And so you do want things on there like music, and so they have independence with that. So one thing is, as I was saying during my presentation, I do use the Echo Dot. I find that really easy to get into playing different music, and basically use the Tobii device to send commands to, like, Alexa, play my music. And then you can have music within your Amazon account that's there. And then you can basically, she can go through and say, next song, play that song again. What's the name of that song? There's all these commands that are Alexa commands that the Echo Dot will respond to, but it gives a really easy access way to music. Also, books, Audible books are available through that. Audible is associated with Amazon. And Audible actually is unique in the sense that it's not a computerized voice reading the books, it's actually a recording of a human reading it. And there's samples on the audible.com website where you can hear the books and, you know, find out what book she might be interested in listening to. And then, you know, you can listen to a sample to determine whether, you know, some people can put you to sleep and other people are much more engaging and interactive, and it might be a male or a female reading the book aloud. So you can sort of sample it to see whether that would be a good match. And then you can just purchase it, and then it can be, you can set up pages. And I've developed pages my own to support use of the Alexa or the Echo Dot and the use of the Echo Dot to read books. And I'm getting those available. So there's our options. The other thing is someone had mentioned that they had used what's called the Patty King DeBond pages, the dynamic communication book. They're also known as sort of the Patty Judy pages, and they definitely have a lot in there of core phrases that support interaction. And there's a whole activities page, and I've sort of upgraded it with for someone who's older, you know, teenage, that they can talk about movies that they've seen. They can talk about what they want to wear and direct, you know, about that. They can also talk about music, listening to music on iTunes. So having a conversation with somebody else about music, you know, let's check it out on iTunes, that type of thing. And that's already pre-programmed in there. Also, there's shopping in there, taking pictures, all sorts of things. So there's content in there that's already available. And then there's also things about, you know, within school, it's called like classroom talk, but it's a lot of things about like, I can do it, this is too hard. So there's a lot of interaction, and it's core phrases. And then you still need access to words, core words, so that he or she can put novel ideas and messages together. So there's a lot, but just watch. I'll put some links into some things that I'll be developing and some names of courses that are coming out soon that will help you. And you'll have my email so I can give you more specifics in terms of where to go and what to get.
Thanks, Judy. You know, I've got one more question I think I'm going to go ahead and read, and then your comment got to a lot of the other things that are populating, and it's really asking a lot of questions about kind of specific links or ways to access and things like that. So I think being able to put together a Q&A document as a result that offer the links and things that you are aware of would be just perfect. The last question that I see here that I think would be great for conversation is, says, I do not believe you mentioned PODD, sorry if I missed that, on the Toby. Do you use PODD on the Toby and or Light Tech, or only your customized grids books? What do you think of PODD? I don't know if you say pod, for individuals with Rett. Yeah.
So I definitely know individuals who are using pod and they have it on the device. That's fine. If that's a language system your son or daughter's grown up with, then use that. That's a language system. And so that will help them, you know, communicate. And you're using sort of that same thing where you need that yes, no to go through partner assisted scanning. It's just a more in-depth language system than what I use, because I want ultimately for their language to, it will come out through different ways, whether they're using a communication device. Like if you're using a parenchyromic device, there's language within there where they can put the core words together and communicate what they want. I personally don't use pod. I've worked with girls who do use pod, and then sometimes they've transitioned to using other things to communicate. It just depends on how much training and support you've had in using pod. It's a great system. It really helps younger children get going with language and being able to play, and it's got directed play. There are courses I know that you need to attend to really get the gist of how to do that and support that with your son or daughter, both even just the Light Tech system and then the system that's on the device. And what I'm not sure about is I think that, and I could be wrong, don't quote me on this, I would have to do more research. I think that the pod is in the software on the Tobii devices, and it's called Compass. And to be honest, Compass is really hard to program. And so I use Communicator 5, and that's much easier to program. I can customize things a lot more, and I can teach others how to customize and create content specific to their son or daughter. So those are two different communication software systems. And what I know about the Tobii is that typically if you're running Compass, you can't have Communicator 5 on the device because both programs are too big and take up too much space. So it's a physical space and operating system feature of the Tobii device. So now that's different from someone using Communicator 5 with Tobii's new language system software that's come out called Snap Core First. You can actually, that's a smaller program, so you can actually, and there's controls within the Snap Core First and within Communicator that you can switch between both of them, and it can be a seamless switch, so no one even really knows that you've switched. It's more you have a link to words or something, and then they would go to Snap Core First, and then there's a way back to their Communicator pages. But between Compass and Communicator, it just doesn't work. So that's partly why I've steered away from using the pod on the Tobii devices, just because Compass is just, I can't get it to do what I want. And so someone had asked before about like bookshelves with books and, you know, having control programming things in there. Like there's a music video player that I have that I've created. There's other pages I'm developing that will really expand what individuals with Rett syndrome can talk about in terms of interacting with peers, getting ready for school type thing, and having conversations with peers instead of just always adults all the time. And I just haven't, my experience with Compass, it's like, oh my goodness, it's so hard to program for me. So, and for others, for me to teach others. So I've really stuck with Communicator 5. And that means I've not been using the pod on the Tobii Dynavox devices. Sorry, long-winded approach to answering that question.
No, it was great. It was great. All right. Well, as I said, we've got several questions that are listed there about how to access things specifically, and probably we see them, and I think the best way to respond to those will be to put responses in writing. Okay. So we will go ahead and do that, work with Judy and ask for her assistance as we kind of build that out over the next couple of weeks. So, you know, I just want to close by saying thank you, Judy. We appreciate all of your work, your intervention care, enthusiasm, energy, et cetera. You give us hope, and we really appreciate your partnership. And to everyone on the line today, we hope you found value in the session, and the knowledge that you learned here today is going to empower you in your path forward. We do believe as an organization that information should be free to everyone who needs to avail themselves of it. And so we have some supporters that we would like to thank for their support of us and our desire to make Rett Ed free to everyone. They're the ones who make this possible. So please do take time to email us with questions or comments if you have any. If you have any suggestions about how we can fine-tune our Rett Ed webinars in the future, we are all ears. We want to make this as excellent as possible. And we hope to see you next month, August 14th, where our topic will be understanding the autonomic dysfunction in Rett syndrome. And we will have world-renowned researcher and neurologist Jeff Newell, who is now the director at the Vanderbilt Kennedy Center in Nashville. So thank you all. I hope you have a good day. And this concludes today's webinar.
Great. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.